on a deeper note, honestly, I think it is my projection of compensating for deep insecurity within myself, if I'm being honest. Hearing those motors in person, dude, it gets my blood flowing right now thinking about it. It's like, there's nothing like it. There's no sound like it, right? Only so much time in a human life. There's only so many things that are really that important. It's humbled me to have patience and understand I'm not in control of everything. I only can control what I can control, which has then helped me get dialed in on my daily activities that actually help push things forward. And the only momentum I've gained was from 3 videos, and they were not vlog style videos.
When it comes to humans, we consider ourselves more important to people than we actually are. This week, I had my friend Tyler, who is a real estate agent and a super car fanatic, on. We had a discussion about cars, a discussion about a little bit about real estate, and mainly about us as people. Let's dive deep into this. This is The Inward Mind. Welcome, everyone. This is The Inward Mind podcast, and today I have the pleasure of having my friend Tyler Shenk on here. He is a realtor, car fanatic, he's just an awesome dude altogether. So we'll dive deep into him as a person and his story and a little bit about what he's interested in. So Tyler, tell everybody a little bit about you and just tell your story, like where you grew up, how you became obsessed with cars, like just about you. Just kind of go from there.
The broad question.
Yeah, the broad question. We're like, who are you, Tyler Shenk? Who are you? But,
well, like you said, real estate agent, super passionate about real estate. Cars, dude, cars have been my biggest passion since as long as I can remember. I was 4 years old in the back of my Las Vegas house, backyard, just rolling little Hot Wheels cars in the dirt, because that's just what I love for whatever reason, right? I don't know what you believe in, but I believe in past lives and stuff like that. So I'm like, I must have been a race car driver in a past life or something, because something about that just lights me up so much to see. Driving here to this appointment today, I saw a Lamborghini dealership we passed. I'm like just drooling as I'm passing by. It's just something within my soul that I love, right? So don't know where it comes from, but it's always been a thing for me. And then that fuels my kind of passion for everything I do, you know? Obviously creating whatever it is in life, whether it's, you know, more sales or more content, just kind of comes back down to a monetary thing typically. We all want more freedom, we want more expression in our own lives, and that typically stems from an abundance of money in some way, shape, or form, right?
yeah.
So for me, real estate was the best vehicle for me to pursue that allowed me to also kind of tailor my own personality that I just naturally flow with, which is I love people. I love helping people, taking care of people, and offering as best customer service as I can. And real estate's a perfect combination of being able to do that, as well as create an abundance of income, actively and passively. That's worked for me. So kind of a general rundown. I was born in Las Vegas, Nevada, moved around every single year of my life growing up, so kind of been all over the place, but Utah is now home for the past 12 years, and yeah, here we are with you doing this podcast today.
Yeah. Dope. So what led you, when you're talking about the cars and the dirt, what is your favorite thing about cars, right? Because there's lots of things that go into it, and I was watching some of your videos on your YouTube channel yesterday, like what drives you to continue to go seek after cars and look for it? Like we'll dive deep into that, but he has a supercar, supercar that he has that is going to be in his possession within the next month or so, but we'll dive into that. But what has driven you to continue to seek after cars? Like, is it just something deep inside you that has built over time, or what is it? Interesting
question. Number one, I'll start out on a surfacey answer of, dude, I love the aesthetics and the sound of a good car. Like a good looking car that sounds good, that's what does it for me. I don't care how fast it is, honestly. Like it doesn't have to be that fast, and I'm satisfied, right? So on a surfacey note, aesthetics. On a deeper note, honestly, I think it is my projection of compensating for deep insecurity within myself, if I'm being honest. Like something that's about deep. Growing up, I perceive, see the Lamborghini on the street. I perceive like, oh, if I'm capable of being the man that can drive a Lamborghini or own a Lamborghini, that means I'm capable of something more extreme than the average person, I guess, which I then justify as like, oh, that then will allow me to feel worthy of being confident within myself. That's kind of what I've dove in my own mind and sought out as to what a supercar really means. So when you break it down, it's a machine. Yeah, it's the same type of machine that I drove here to today, right? It's very similar. A bunch of metal piece together to get you from A to B. But the story that I attach to it is something more significant that validates my self-worth in some way, I guess. No, dude, I get it. We always we're humans and we worship something, right? And it's just kind of how we choose where we put our time and where we put our effort into. And supercars are pretty awesome to dive into. Yeah. So go into a little bit further. You said on your YouTube channel that you're building cash flow to buy race cars.
Are you looking to be a race car driver? I know you went to F1 and all that stuff down in Vegas. Are you looking to be diving into racing, or is it just kind of more of a, I want to be as a hobby to be driving all these fancy supercars all over?
Just a hobby, more or less. I don't think, maybe racing could be in the future, cars, I'm not sure, but right now it's not a main driver necessarily. A lot of money and time to do that. It's a lot more logistics than you think it would be just to go drive a race car on a track, right? So for me, it's just something about how I perceive it now is I just want to gather my closest people, have whether it's my girlfriend or close friends in the passenger seat going for a canyon cruise with some of my closest friends in their cars. That's the perfect day for me. So just something about that is kind of what the driver is. So to me, it's a symbol of abundance, freedom, and connection. That's what supercars mean to me. I connect with my favorite people over something that I love so much. Just have fun with it. And then taking it a step further into YouTube, making fun content videos, it's a way to capture the memory. It also allows me to dive into the creative process, what I love. I'm kind of an artist a little bit, not like full blown, but I loved art as a kid and just naturally gravitated towards that over sports or whatever, So it allows me to dive into my creative side as well. And, the fact that we can also monetize YouTube and make money from it just makes it a cherry on top of the cake. So it's kind of like the trifecta.
Yeah, it works out. You hit all of your buttons. So what has been your struggle for YouTube, right? Like we all, as people who create content, which most people do, what has been your struggle with your YouTube channel specifically? Because you have 13 or 14K on YouTube and your content, I really enjoy your content. I was watching some of it yesterday before this podcast. And what has been that challenge for you in creating content?
Getting my freaking car.
Yeah.
Well, to clarify, you said I've got a sports car is what it really is. I'm aspiring for the supercar and hypercar level, but this is a sports car, I'll call it. But I'm waiting for it for a year and a half now. Like it was supposed to be delivered a long time ago, and here we are still not having it, right?
Well, dive further into that. What kind of car is it?
So it's a Lotus Emira. It's a brand new model that Lotus has created. And I've never really been a huge fan of Lotus before. They're kind of like, or they have been like go-kart feeling cars. They're very small, very barren inside, and that's not my jam. But the Emira is their new model that's like an actual, their attempt at an actual sports/supercar.
Cool.
So it's like
I remember the Lotus Elise driving around back in the day. It looked like a little bug eating.
Never liked.
No, it was always ugly, and I only used it in like Need for Speed when I needed something that was really quick and speedy. Yeah. But dude, I just love that your passion for cars, and I love when I was watching your F1 video that you created with your girlfriend down in F1. Tell us how that experience was seeing F1. That was the first time seeing it live. Yeah. How was that? How's that experience?
So surreal. This happens with every decent car. It doesn't compare to pictures or videos. It just, as you know, as a creator, everything's diminished 50%, if not more, when you video it compared to real life. Cars, that is exactly how it is to a T. Hearing those motors in person, dude, it gets my blood flowing right now thinking about it.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it. There's no sound like it, right? So it brought out my inner child. We got to go down there, play, and just see these race cars and scream like little kids watching. It's just so much fun.
Yeah.
And that's what I want more of in my life is that excitement.
Cool. Do you think that as you're moving towards real estate, is that something that you're going to continue to do in the long term, or are you just using that as like a stepping stone to do something else?
No, I'll always do real estate just because the way I've cultivated my business is just building relationships with people that I love and offering genuine value and just helping them where I can. And I'm naturally acquiring a skill set over time. It's been about 10 years, almost a decade I've been doing real estate now. And there's just naturally things you learn and know how to do that someone who doesn't study it for 10 years doesn't know. So I'll always be that bridge to people that want it, that come to me and are referred to me by friends and family that need help. I'll always offer those services. But it's interesting you ask that because I am hitting a stage in my life where I'm realizing there's only so much time in a human life. There's only so many things that are really that important. I'm actually coming off of a year, 2023 in the beginning. I was pretty scattered, chasing too many rabbits. I was trying to find off-market wholesale real estate deals, trying to do commercial real estate, doing my residential real estate, doing car YouTube, trying to post on every platform with a car YouTube, which is daunting task in and of itself, right? Just too much. There's not enough time in a day. There's not enough energy in a human spirit, at least mine, right? So I'm really dialing in my focus now to say, what is really worth my time and what do I really want to grow? Because you only grow one, maybe two things well, if we're being, in my opinion, if we're being honest.
No, it's true.
So I kind of forget your question, but essentially dialing in the focuses that I have being, I always do real estate. Yes, I always do real estate in the capacity I'm doing it, but I can also tie that into cars and networking and meeting new people and just connecting with relationships and naturally building and growing, which usually leads into some sort of real estate transaction at some point in time because everyone needs a house sooner or later.
Sooner or later, somebody needs to buy a house and change where they're at.
Right.
Yeah, and you're a perfect bridge for that. So one of the things that has always inspired me about every conversation, because I've known Tyler for 4 or 5 years, maybe a little bit longer, but I met him through some mutual friends. And one of the things that's always inspired me about you is the positivity that you stick around things. Even though when times are hard, I always see that you continue to look for the positive aspects in that. Within your life so far, looking in the positive aspects of things, like what are some of the challenges in the last few years that have pushed you to start working harder towards your goals? I'm sorry. I'm going deep here. I know you pretty well, so I can figure to ask some of these questions.
That's a good question for sure. Well, I would say last year was humbling, to say the least. It was a good year. I'm very grateful and very blessed. Like I have nothing to complain about. And it was not the year I'd hoped it would have been, right? Naturally, being in real estate, the market's just shifting. Things are just different. And if we're being honest, this is the first time we've gone through any sort of market shift. You logically hear about it, you think you know what it's going to be like, but the emotional capacity or aspect is just different. There's no way to prepare for it, right? So I'm seeing, kind of gotten a feel for the emotions of society as a whole as market shifts go on, if that makes sense, where everyone's just a bit more hesitant. Rightfully so. Yep. I'm building a house right now myself. I'm also hesitant, so I get it. And it's cool to go through to see what my clients experience in the same, when they're going through a home build, right? So it's humbled me to have patience and understand I'm not in control of everything. I only can control what I can control, which has then helped me get dialed in on my daily activities that actually help push things forward rather than getting distracted with like, oh, I can't control what this person's thinking. I can't control what their decision-making process is. I can't control what this seller or buyer is offering, whatever the logistical thing may be. I can't control that. What I can control is staying positive, like you said, pushing forward each and every day and just being accountable to my money-producing activities, as I call them, the things that actually thread the needle and make progress. If I just do that, I'm good. I don't have to, that's all I have to answer to, right? Mm-hmm. Results will happen, results will take care of themselves, but I'm just one freaking peon in this massive universe that I'm not in control of is the answer, is the truth.
No,
right?
I get you. No, thinking that we're in control is just... It's nuts. Like that's what I'm getting a little bit older. I turned 29 on Saturday.
Nice.
And
happy birthday.
Thanks. But I just I've started to come to this realization that I'm not as important as I have perceived myself to be. And that's first off, number one, humbling. But I think that's just the maturity of getting older. It's like realizing like, oh, cool. Like you said, I'm just a tiny speck on this whole massive planet. And that all that we're doing is like, we're just here. Right. And I think dropping into that perspective too of realizing, oh, cool, I'm not as important as I think that I am, and I should keep that perspective. So I appreciate that you are doing that. But let's dive back in.
Hold on.
You got something?
I got to ask you more about that. How does that make you feel? That realization of I'm not that important. How does that genuinely make you feel inside?
Initially, when I started to notice that, it was a little like nerve wracking, like, oh my gosh. Yeah. But now that I've kind of like, because I kind of started to come to this realization a couple months ago, that because I've always like, oh, I'm not that important, right? But like cognitively, I'm starting to finally get to that point. But I'm like, oh, it's super freeing to the fact that I'm not as important to people, because then if like there's zero expectations, like I know that if somebody says, hey, let's get together to do something, then we don't get together, it's like, oh, cool, there's no expectations. I'm like, I'm not the most important thing in somebody's life. Like even with my wife, like my wife has a lot of things that are super important to her, but first and initially she's got to make sure that she's where she needs to be so that then we can work together as a team, right? Like we are the really most important people together in each other's lives. But besides that, nobody else really truly cares about me as much as I used to think that they do. Yeah. Right. And that's it's very freeing. Once you get to that point, it's like, wow. But I'm all about it right now. Cause then what that's done for me is to stop caring as much. Right. I don't care as much about what people think about me. I don't care about like my content. Like, cool. Like I have to earn the views of the people that are in my audience, right? I'm not just going to put something out there and like, oh, well, all of these people should be watching my content. They should be watching all my reels and my podcasts and doing all this. They should do that for me. Like, no, I need to give them enough value to show like, hey, listen, I'm out here. I want to provide value to you. And if you deem it necessary and that I've like given you enough value, please follow my stuff and let's interact and let's be on that point. And that's, I don't know, there's always a time I believe that there's always a time for something. We always think like, oh yeah, I should have done all of my social media stuff last year or 10 years ago and all this stuff. But were you particularly ready at that time to start the content or at that time to do a podcast well or to do something well? So yeah, it's super freeing. It's super freeing to think about, well, I don't really care anymore about what people think. I've kind of not cared a lot, but like deep down there was a little bit of that. But now I'm like, cool, I'm not that important to everybody. and I'll just get over it and it'll be good. And I can continue to do the things that I want to do. And if people like it, cool. If they don't, cool.
That's awesome. It's cool you got into the freeing side because I see both sides and I've gone through an experience myself where it's like at first I realized like a lot of my self-identity and my own motivation that was very high, much higher in certain ways in previous years of my life was driven by that need to be seen, the need to be validated by other people, right? Yeah. But once you realize that you cannot control that because everyone is involved in their own life just as much as you're involved in your own, you don't matter to them as much as you think you do, like you said, right? Which at first is like, where does my motivation come from now? Yeah. Holy crap. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? But then it kind of just feels like the playing ground is evened out and there's no rules. You can do whatever the heck you want.
Yeah. And I think it gives you that more, because you're like, where the motivation come from? Like, it actually brings you true internal motivation of like, cool, I'm not doing this for anybody else. I'm doing these things because I want to do them. And that's my drive. Is I'm like, my drive a huge time is my family. Like, I have 3 daughters, I have a wife, and it's just like, wow, that's a huge drive for me. And I need to continue to push myself so that I can not let my family down, whether that's monetarily or like one of my biggest goals this year is to be the most present father and husband when I'm not working. Because last year I worked a ton and I'd realized on the times when I was off, I was still thinking about work. So being able to get to that point, like, oh, cool, the people who do care about me and the people that I do, like right now, my kids really, they do care about me and what I think about them and things like that. So I need to continue to uphold that so that the relationships with them in 20 years are still good. Right? I don't want to be like, oh yeah, all I remember my dad for is he would just work all the time. He never hung out with us. He never played with us. He never did anything. We never went on trips. We never did that. We always did this, whatever he wanted to do. Like, I don't want that. I don't want that for my kids. I want my kids to be like, oh man, dad worked so hard, but then when he was off, he played even harder with us. Right? That's the kind of version I want my kids to remember me as when they're adults and like, oh man, we had so much fun with dad and mom and all that stuff because they were 100% in. And that's just one of the things. It's got to be 100% in whatever I'm doing. And that's what I've been working towards this year. And that's why I got pretty lofty goals that I really don't even tell people very many of my goals. Cause I just like I said, people don't truly care about my goals. So it's very rare who I tell my goals to, but I just will continue to work and continue to try and be that 100% good at whatever I'm doing in that moment, whether that's me producing a podcast. And this is my side thing. I love this podcast, but it is my side thing. I'm just doing it just because I want to be better at communicating with people and finding the best stories. Yeah. That's my goal here, is to find the best stories for people. So I love being able to do this stuff. So, but yeah, and that's kind of why I invited you on, because I remember you talk about stuff, and every time we talk at whether that's Nick's house or somebody's house, there's just always seemed like a good motivational talk and a good understanding, and it's always fun and good. But I've been loving what you've been doing with the content on your YouTube. So would you go deeper into what are you thinking more about? Because you do more of the vlog style a lot of the time. What is your perspective for your channel in the next few years? Because I know you said you want to produce more content and do more stuff. Do you have like an idea of direction you want to go, or are you going to kind of continue to do the vlog style thing, or what's that for you?
It's a great question, because my channel is not big. It's got some momentum, very small, which I'm grateful for and pumped about. It motivates me, but it's not big, right? And the only momentum I've gained was from 3 videos, and they were not vlog style videos. Mm-hmm. They were very scripted, very planned out, and very intentional with the topic, right? So my plan is, to answer your question, just to produce as much as I possibly can. I want to produce 3 videos a week minimum on that thing. And if I have to wake up at 4 a.m. to do that, that's what I'm willing to do. We'll see how that, action follows what I'm saying, but I'm just waiting for this freaking car. Yeah. But that's where I feel like I'm at now, because it just lights me up. It just makes me excited, right? Seeing that car, I went and checked out my car the other day and saw it in the showroom. I'm just like, dude, I was happy for 2 days after that, just like on a high from just looking at the thing up close, right? Yeah. So I'm going to take that energy that I get from that and translate it into content, into videos. A lot of it's going to be vlog style to start, just because that's kind of like you just point and shoot a camera when you don't know what you're doing. You're trying to think of ideas. I think it will naturally evolve into more intentional content that is like, hey, here's this topic. What's the title and thumbnail first? Let's create the video back from there, and then go shoot. You taught me shoot for the edit. That has been the most, I literally have your voice in my head every time I edit a video. Thankfully, I shot for the edit, or gosh dang, I should have shot for the edit. This last one I did, worst video I've ever shot, because I had 56 minutes of content. I was like, this is too much. It took me 3 weeks to edit. Dude, content is so hard. And doing video production for so long, it's just learning that as a craft of like what's important to shoot and what's not important to shoot. And I think just keep working on that thing too, because the more that's what I always tell everybody who's doing content. Like, the more videos you make, the easier it's going to be able to figure out what's
what you need to shoot and what's not to shoot. Yeah. And always think of shoot for the edit, but especially a little more things I'm going to tell you too, is be able to, especially with vlogs, how do you tell the best story? Right. I liked the video where you were talking about that you sold that Sierra car and the dude gave you the check and then all that stuff and like the nervousness of that. And like, you kind of left it on a cliffhanger and I was like, Tyler, what happened, dude? You got me like, dude, that was like $36,000. That's crazy. Like, what happened? Like, but that's the thing is like, you left us hanging and I got no payoff on that. Like what?
Funny.
So
I'll have to go back and watch that video.
Yeah, dude, you left it on a cliffhanger and I was like, the money hasn't cleared yet. And then it was the end of the video and I was like, Tyler, I want to know. I really want to know what happened in this.
See, and that to me was like, there's just a filler video. No one cares about what I'm doing. So I just like shot a crappy video and posted it. That's like probably what I was thinking at the time.
Yeah.
Like, oh, no one's watching this anyway. So,
but I think when I looked, it was like, like 1,000 people watched that video.
That's funny.
So I was like, whoa, dude. Yeah. But I was kind of like, oh man, telling the best story. You left me. I was sucked in. I watched the whole video and then I was like, Tyler, I just got season finale'd by you. This was terrible. But so whatever happened with the
yeah, it cleared.
Okay. Good payoff.
I was driving back and I was like thinking like, is the guy gonna be there? Is he gonna be gone? Is the check gonna be bogus? Like, we're just chancing this. And I was like, literally driving. I was like, why am I chancing this? I should have stuck to my guns, said no, come with me like we planned.
Yeah.
Make sure it clears and then we'll go back. So it's, anyways,
yeah,
it was all good.
Good. Okay. So, glad it turned out well. That's one of my questions for you, because you're a car guy. Yeah. What do you think, transitioning a little bit, what do you think about electric cars? Especially like, let's say, because the one that I'm a huge fan of the Cybertruck. I love that it looks different because I just look at it, like I was commenting on Braden's, his Instagram yesterday. He posted some photos of it and I'm like, it reminds me of what Oakley, the sunglass company, used to do in the 2000s, which made them what they were, right? Like, yes, Tesla's done a lot of stuff, but they always had these crazy sunglasses and everyone's like, wow, it's so different. It's so new. It's so revolutionary. Like, what is your opinion about like electric vehicles as a whole? As a whole,
I like them for daily drivers. So I'll be honest, like I've got a Ford Bronco. I daily, as a real estate agent, I'm driving all the time. I put way too many miles in that car, 34,000 in 2 years, whatever it's been. So I'm constantly driving. It's a bit of a gas guzzler. It's not terrible, but it's not the best, right? So from that standpoint, I definitely have catch myself daydreaming, like, should I go get a Tesla? Like, this is that would be much more economical, right? So I like the idea of hybrid cars or electric cars for daily drivers, as long as we can maintain good looking cars, right? Like Ford Bronco electric, that'd be sick, in my opinion. I don't care. Like, for my personal opinion, motors only matter if it's like a screaming V8 or V12 Lamborghini. Other than that, I don't give a crap. Quite frankly, I'm not some like musclehead guy or whatever, So I like them. I don't know enough about like the impact on our world and the atmosphere to have a say, because you want to say, oh yeah, it's good for the atmosphere and for our air, but it's like, well, you hear it's actually worse because they have to create it in a factory that's even worse. Yeah,
and all of that stuff. It's just like, what's the benefit? Yeah.
Right. So I'll take it to supercars and like my passion on it. We'll talk about my passion in the realm of cars. I've hated it initially, where I'm like, oh, screw that. I want the screaming V8 or V12. Like, don't mess with that. Don't take it away, right? Even like Formula One. I went down and watched that race. They're now V12 engines. I love the V10 screaming as high pitch as you can get, 1990s F1. That's my biggest, like my favorite kind of car. So from that standpoint, don't love them. But I can respect them increasing performance. So I went down to Florida with a buddy and drove the new Ferrari 296 GTB, and that's a hybrid, right? It's still got, I think it's a V6. Don't quote me. I'm not that much of a car guy. I just like to go fast. But I think it's a V6 plus an electric motor. And when that electric motor kicks on, it's like 25 miles an hour. It starts shooting off like a rocket. And you're like, whoa. And you still have the sound of the V6 though. So it's like the best of both worlds, right? So I can appreciate the technology. I'm somewhat down if it's done properly while maintaining the supercar aspect if it's meant to be in a supercar. If you take that away, I'm not for it at all.
Cool. That's fair. I just thought I'd give you an ask because I'll probably end up having a Cybertruck at some point in time because I just like it. Yeah, I think it looks dope. Yeah. And I like, if you put a black wrap on that thing, it looks like a Batmobile. Sure. And that hits me as like a kid wanting a Batmobile. I'm in. I'm in.
And real quick, there's a point I want to come back to. It was interesting. We were talking about not mattering. Every human being just living their own story, and we really don't matter in the grand scheme of life unless you have a huge impact, but even then it's just like people are still in their own world. That really applies a lot to content, I've realized. And what's interesting about that is you're talking about vlog style filming. It's so funny watching myself what scenes I think are important to a video or what's going to make it better, but it's really just fluff of me talking for way too long and trying to validate a part of my story or not look a certain way or whatever. It's like people don't care.
Yeah.
You look at the biggest, vloggers out there, like the David Dobrik's or whatever creator you like, it's usually just like punchline to punchline to punchline, exciting thing. There's no fluff in between. Because human beings, we're turning into zombies. That's why content is king, because human beings, if you're not creating, you're consuming, and the consuming consumes your life. It takes over. And it's crazy to watch. It's like you watch someone you're hanging out with and they're like on their phone at dinner or whatever. It's like you're literally a zombie just taking in, like mindlessly existing, right?
Yes.
And that's why content's king, because that's what the people are feeding off of, right? So full circle, coming back around, I've realized what's helped me and I'm trying to get better at is fine-tuning my editing process and filming process with just keeping it exciting and keeping that attention span hooked in as long as you possibly can, because we don't matter as much as we think as we do.
Yeah.
As much as we think we do. People just want to be entertained. That's it.
Yep. People want to be entertained. And I would even say in this way, I wouldn't say it's just a snappy edit either. Yeah, sure. From the perspective of kind of how things are shifting. If I look at the number one creator, which is Mr. Beast, that's nobody can convince me otherwise. Right. He has tested over the last couple of years. This last year, a couple videos that was way different editing style than what he's typically done. And it's performed better in certain metrics because he's like, cool. What I'm trying to focus on, and that's what I'm going to do a lot of, is storytelling, right? How can I tell the best story? How do I know how to be able to hook people into the beginning, get them and get all of the typical story things? How do I get people to understand that? And how do I continue to do that? And that's where, because there's so much content, like you're just talking about zombies. Everyone will just scroll on their phone for hours and hours and hours. And I think personally, if you tell a good story, people are going to get your content regardless. Whether that's you're doing shorts or TikTok videos that are 15 to 20 seconds, it's still telling a story within 15 to 20 seconds. Yeah. Long form YouTube videos and vlogs, like what you do, you still got to be able to tell a story. Right. Because then there's some of that, because if we think about any movie, like I've just binge watched the Lord of the Rings series with my wife the last week, and there's a lot of fluff in that too, but it also is developing the story, right? From the outside, if you look at it, that one scene in context, out of context, it looks like fluff, but within the context of the whole story, it is actually adding a crucial piece that you might be missing out on because you're not getting the context of the whole video. So that's something I would also encourage to is remember that edits are flashy and that's all the things, but also where things are shifting to within the social media realm is storytelling. That's all you're going to hear from basically all of the biggest people right now is like, how do you create the best story? Like I'm created this podcast because I'm trying to find the best stories of everybody in conversations, because who knows? I don't know. It doesn't have to be a massive celebrity. It doesn't have to be someone who's huge. It doesn't have to be anything. It could be anybody who has a really good story. And if you can tell the best story, I think that's where people are going to win.
It's really cool. Good note, because it comes back down to our ancestral times of what we do for entertainment, tell stories around the campfire.
Dude, always. That's storytelling is literally like, and I'm a Christian. I go back to this, like Jesus, like how did he tell stories? Or how did he do everything in his whole ministry? It was just stories. He told stories about these hypothetical things that they called parables, and that's how he did all that stuff. So that's how we as humans operate. That's how we connect to people the best, is with the best story. So it's nice to see that that's coming, and that it's been a lot of the best people have already been doing it for a long time, but it's more people are starting to realize like, oh, it is storytelling. Maybe it is. Maybe I should spend more time instead of just recording something, spend a little bit more time planning stuff out. And yeah, you never know. And also, like you were saying earlier before we were on air, like you had a couple videos that blew up 2 years later, right? You got to be patient because you never know when it's going to pop off and something's going to be like, whoa, holy crap, this is great. Because what happens when you post a video is it recommends it to somebody else, some of your old content, and that could be what causes your video to explode. You just never, you never really know.
Right. Or there's like, for example, like a future video you create could be about a previous video's topic, and that being, if you're more popular at that time, people can go back and see the similar topic video from 5 years ago. It just happened to be a local creator here. Stradman's a big car creator here locally, right? He just bought his dream car that he showed himself like saying was his dream car 4 years ago. Like the first time he drove in it to now buying it or leasing it, whatever, having it. People now are blowing up this video. It's like, holy crap, look at him back here 4 years ago, 5 years ago saying he wanted this car. Now he has it. That's so cool.
Yeah. So you just gotta, it's everything when it comes to content is long-term, right? People want the short-term. And my buddy was on the last episode that we were doing, we were talking about like, especially with health, people want the quick fixes, but that's just humans in general. We want I can just go get this food really quick over here. I want to do this, even though it might not be the best for me. I'm just going to push through and do this and do all the other things. Like that's with everything. We literally as humans, like we'll flip through a video all day and scroll through and flip and flip and flip because someone didn't hook us well. But if you start paying attention to what hooks you the most when you're on social media, it's usually the best stories, or it's just pure entertainment. Or for you, car stuff. But even then, like some of the best car videos, you're going to look at it like, oh, wow, the storytelling is really good. So
for sure.
Yeah.
I dig it.
But dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find your stuff?
So, if just personally, it's Shenk1 on Instagram, Tyler Shenk on Facebook, or Operation Race Car on YouTube is my car stuff.
Yeah, Operation Race Car. He's going to get the race car. He actually has one. It's across where we're at right now. It's across the street. There is literally the dealership that has his car, but he can't get it yet. Probably not for another month.
You can't buy it for another 3 to 4 weeks. So
yeah, so bummer. He's being teased about the car he's wanted for the last year. But he'll get it eventually. But thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Share it with somebody who needs to hear about supercars and about content and about anything, because Tyler Shenk is a good dude. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.